Perfect. So let me just check. Yeah, people are streaming in, which is good. Good afternoon, morning, wherever you are, everyone. Thank you for joining. Still see people coming in to the Zoom webinar, so give a few more seconds and then we'll get underway. If you have any kind of questions or anything, please, use the Q&A in the chat in the meantime, and then we'll get started just momentarily. Cool. Just about stabilizing out, so let's get started. So thank you everyone for joining. As you probably already know, we're doing 10 accounting processes that you should be automating today. So my name is Matt. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at ApprovalMax, so look after kind of sales and support teams. I'm joined by a great panel today, so I'll let them actually introduce themselves in turn and do a much better job than I would. So go left to right on the screen in front of us. So Richard, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hi, everybody. My name's Richard. I'm a key account manager at Ignition, based in just outside Cape Town, just outside Stellenbosch. And I've been with Ignition for about 3 years now. Heavily involved in helping our customers to get the most out of Ignition and other softwares as well. And yeah, really helping them on their sort of digital journey and changing their lives, hopefully.
Perfect.
Oh, I'm jumping in there already. I'm Jodie Lee Manuel. I'm head of education and implementation at Syft Analytics. I've only been there for 1.5 years, but I'm super passionate as well about kind of finding ways for our clients to kind of get the maximum value about Syft and really using it to grow their practices or their businesses. So I'm excited for the conversation today.
Good.
Hey guys, my name is Peter. Thanks, Matt. My name is Peter. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director at Iridium Business Solutions. We've been around for about 10 years now and recently won the Xero Partner of the Year this year, which we're pretty stoked about. Apart from sales and marketing, I also head up the automation team and many, many other functions like most small businesses. So yeah, excited to chat today.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for for kind of taking the time out to impart some of your wisdom today. So a couple just ground rules before we get started, and then we'll get into the thick of things. So if you have any questions, there'll be time for Q&A at the end, but just do pepper them in as you go. Q&A or chat, we'll kind of try and pick them up on the slide. I've got a second screen here. Keep an eye on in case any do come in. This will be recorded, so you'll get a kind of recording of this afterwards to share around your teams. There'll be contact details at the end, and it will all be emailed out. The only other thing to say is just in terms of the structure of the webinar today. So we're going to go over 10 processes, as the title says. We've kind of split that, so 3 for each app, and then Peter's going to impart his wisdom with a 10th and across all the other 9. In and amongst these kind of different sections, we're going to spring some polls on you as well, just get a little bit of a feel in terms of where you're at with your journey and to kind of try and tailor the content a little bit to what you are answering. And also a bit of context. So the kind of birth of this webinar, whilst we have global people tuning in today, it's because we were all finalists in a recent Xero Award in South Africa. So we thought we'd kind of all pull together and impart some knowledge for you all today, basically. So let's get started. So poll 1 is going to be sprung hopefully momentarily. So yeah, what processes do you think are the most challenging to automate? And again, at the bottom there you see, if you have another one which is particularly challenging, just share it in the chat box and get the discussion going. We'll give you a few seconds to answer that, and then we'll move on and ask Peter some questions. It's pretty even split so far.
It's pretty cool to watch actually live. Everything going, kind of like a stock exchange going up and down.
We need to play some bets, I think. Cool. So I think that's just about there. We'll let that keep running as we move on. But it's looking practice management. It's just edging out. But everything's got a few answers except for other, which is just 1, but I don't think the chat's come in yet. So that's going to be a bit of a mystery, I guess. Perfect. So we'll start with you, Peter, before we kind of move on to the different apps. You can all see the results there actually that's just been posted, but just kind of laying the groundwork a little bit for accounting automation. So Peter, based on your experience in the market, like what kind of general kind of tips would you give to someone who's kind of potentially quite new on the journey of automating a few of their accounting processes?
Yeah, Matt. So, I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, and I think we've made a lot of mistakes along the way. One of them has been to do too much too quickly. What I've realized is in terms of kind of change management, your team can only take so much. And so we've realized that rather give your team a little bit more time to get used to things, do a little bit more training with them, and ease them into things, because change is scary. Depending on the kind of age spectrum of your team, you may find that this is kind of a really big change for them, and so it's important to kind of sit with them and kind of understand where they're at, because most of the time, if they're talking to their boss, they're probably not going to tell the truth and the whole truth. They're probably going to go, everything's good. And then you find out from HR or somebody else that everything's not so good. So I think with a lot of automation comes a lot of scary stuff. And guys often, I mean, I remember having a chat with a client, and one of their team members came to me and said, you've just automated kind of most of my function. I think I'm going to lose my job. And I think that's kind of common with a lot of people when you're doing change. And this was coming from a chartered accountant, so that was pretty scary because I'm one myself. So I think that's probably one of the big things. Ease into the change management when you're doing automation. I suppose the other thing is, take your time to understand what you're wanting to automate and why. Often, there's a lot to automate, lots of fun stuff out there, a lot of cool tech, and a lot of great salespeople in tech. And so they often are pushing solutions on you, but it's important to understand why you're doing it, and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and not just because it looks cool and it looks interesting. And I often get caught in the looks cool part and want to just dive into the next tech solution and play around with it. So I think, for me, it's taking your time to test out what's important, and then easing into it. So I think, those are probably two big things for me. And I suppose the last one is, there is a lot of great tools out there. I think it's important to chat to your fellow accountants. They've probably got some wisdom if they've been around for a while, and chat to the market. Guys overseas are incredibly helpful. In Australia, UK, US, they're all open to actually sharing their knowledge. And so I think it's really important to actually just have a frank chat with a few people using great apps out there, and just go, what are your thoughts? How do I benefit from this?
Great.
Nice. And then so it's a good point about kind of almost like app overwhelm. There's a lot of different ones to choose from. And like you say, the sales demo can sound really good, and then it's kind of perhaps a different reality sometimes to that kind of disconnect. But let's say you've selected a process to automate, or an app to help with that, or whatever the case may be. Do you typically follow like a similar process for each one, almost like one size fits all, or do you kind of differ it according to other requirements and factors?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of one size fits all. I tend to dive in and, as I said, kind of experiment a bit. I'm kind of like a bit of a science geek, so I'll want to look at different ways of playing around with the tools and what's important at the time. So early on in our business, we rolled out kind of payables automation, and span it across 150 clients in 2 months, and the whole team was up and running and everything was amazing. If I tried to do that now with a team of 50, it'd probably take me a year and a half, because it is just a whole different kind of ball game, depending on what size of team you're at and kind of what you're trying to roll out. So if it's some of the apps are a lot more complicated as well. So if you're wanting to automate something nice and simple, you could probably roll out nice and quickly, and do a couple of training sessions and let the team go. But it is, you really do need to properly understand what you're trying to do and kind of the impact it has on your greater team. Some tools we've got in the room, there's only a handful of people that really need to know it properly. Ignition, we've got probably like 3 or 4 people in our team that are champions, and the rest of the team just know that stuff happens in the background and they get new clients onboarded. So it's definitely not one size fits all for me.
Nice. That actually takes us on quite nicely to another question, because I think, looking at the Xero App Store, for instance, and if you walk around any of these events, there's hundreds and thousands of different apps. So you mentioned you use Ignition, which is awesome, of course. What's your current app stack look like, and how they all kind of interplay?
Yes, if we're talking internal and external, we've probably got about 30 to 35 apps that we use. I've almost put an app freeze right now on our automation team, just because it is a lot. I think it's, as I said, from Ignition, that's a sign off. But if we go back, we're using things like Pipedrive to manage our leads. And we've integrated Pipedrive in through Zapier. I think I did a webinar with Rich on using Zapier and client onboarding, and it's massively cool to kind of throw in a bunch of zaps and start seeing things happen in the background. We integrated to Slack, we integrated to Xero, to Dext. So when somebody signs off, everything just happens in the background. And we even use kind of Mailer Lite for our emailers, and that also adds the clients automatically when the Ignition proposal signed off. In terms of I've kind of mentioned Dext. Obviously we're using Syft. I got a great sales call and actually got a visit from one of the owners, he sat down with me and he spent the time to just talk me through how they do things differently. And I think that was something I wasn't used to. I was very, very hands-on, and I think that was definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach to sales. And in terms of other things, we use Carbon for kind of part practice management and kind of workflow, and we've really, really enjoyed it. It also takes a long time, and we almost ditched it halfway through it because we weren't getting a lot of of our team to buy into it. Other things would be things like Infodocs for company secretarial, G Suite, Simple Pay, Capitalize. There's probably far too many, but I think that's kind of a reasonable kind of general internal stack. And then things like Dear Inventory or Sin7 Core, ApprovalMax, Expensify, Lightspeed, Retail POSX. It used to be called something nice and simple called Vend. Shopify and WooCommerce as well for our e-commerce clients. And we used to use Xavier, now it's Dex Precision, and that really helps kind of our kind of management accounts practice. So I think that's just a handful of our app stack. There's probably a whole lot more in the background, but
nice. And then I'm always interested to hear from like the vendor perspective, tips for someone who maybe has an app stack or is looking to have one. How do you kind of advise them to evaluate the suitability of an app and kind of periodic reviews? So I guess we'll start with yourself, Jodie, then we'll move over to Richard.
Thank you. So I think I like what you say about how it can be a lot and training's important. So I think you don't want to be like flip-flopping between apps all the time. But I also think it's important to always be making sure you're getting value out of the app. So I think you should re-evaluate it, not necessarily always to move, but also to make sure you're getting the full value. Because like, for example, our product has grown so much over the last few years, and we've got clients that are using it and they don't even know that there's new features available. And at the end of the day, you're paying for these apps. So you need to make sure that they're giving you the best value possible. So I think it should be a consistent process and a balance between making sure you're always getting the best value and making sure your team kind of has the time to learn and grow. And at Syft, we also have Syft Campus, because I think you mentioned as well earlier that training is important. It's all very well having these solutions, but if your team's not actually able to use them, then that's, not super helpful. So I think it's kind of that balance from my side.
Yeah, and then from my side, I pretty much echo what Jodie and Peter have been saying. I think, when you're automating and when you're looking at automating workflows, it's understand what your problems are or what your pain points are in your business. Don't try and automate too much too soon. Find, I would say, 5 key areas or key workflows that you want to sort of tackle and understand what automation looks like in that space. Get comfortable with it, because if you automate too much too soon and you forget what points are automating with what and what actions upstream or downstream are triggering certain events and it all goes wrong, you can be in a world of hurt. So it's like Pete said just now, low and slow, really sort of take your time to think about what you want to do. And yeah, pick out the right solutions, and you have to do the research, right? There's so much out there. Obviously there's 3 very good pieces of software here today. Other solutions are available, just to use a UK BBC term. Yeah, so really just know what you want to achieve, find the right solution, talk to your peers in the industry, talk to vendors as well. Most software companies, are happy to have those conversations as well to help guide, certainly guide the customers to where they need to go. So yeah, there's definitely not one size fits all either, and we'll talk a bit more about that later, actually.
Yeah, no, so definitely echo that as well. Kind of put the onus on the vendor to provide the support and training that's needed. Because again, I think that's the beauty about the recurring revenue model, is that you continue paying for the service, but you need to make sure you're still getting service for that, whether that's kind of new features or the support that you need to make sure that it's not just kind of money going out without any benefit coming back in.
And that's a big thing for us. We want to make sure our customers get a real return on investment in Ignition, and that's how we know that we're providing a good service. So
yeah. I just want to add one thing as well, just in terms of automation. I think I saw this really funny picture once, and it was these cavemen pushing a wheelbarrow with like a square wheel or something, and someone else came and said, "Look, I've got this great new invention, the wheel," and they're like, "No, we're too busy." And I think that often reflects how, I know when I was an auditor at a big audit firm before, and we always knew there was these great things we could automate, but we never felt like we had the time to automate. And one example is we used to test journal entries for about 3 weeks a year. And it used to take like somebody in the service delivery center 2 weeks to kind of put it into the format that we could look for. And then one year we said, no, we're going to like set aside a week to automate this. And after that, it took us 6 minutes to do what would take somebody 2 weeks. But the challenge is every year, because we're on audit deadlines, we never had time to actually go and do it. So it's, I think it's a struggle, especially as accountants. We're always kind of chasing these deadlines, but we can save ourselves a lot of time if we really like prioritize it and make time to do it.
So I like that analogy. You should have got that on the slides in hindsight, but next time. Perfect. So we're going to jump into the 10 process now. So as I said at the top, Peter's going to kick us off with 1, and then we're going to go into kind of 3, and 3, kind of loosely related to the apps on the call. I already see some questions coming in, so please keep those coming for sure, and we'll get to them towards the end. So Peter, over to you to discuss payables.
Yeah, I picked a nice simple one, and one partly not part of this webinar, but back almost probably like 7-8 years ago, we had our app stack of kind of Xero and SimplePay, and we got sold the dream of automating payables and get rid of all our files that we had. And the stress of getting them picked up or emailed to us or dropped into Dropbox, and we were really hesitant at the time, and we're saying no, like to pay for the software means that we could basically hire another person, or even 2 people at a low salary, and we're just thinking that's just a lot of money going down the drain, and I think we didn't initially click on the benefit of kind of getting all our documentation in a timely manner, not having to stress about picking up anything from clients, files in the background. And I think we didn't quite look at the bigger picture of the impact that it might have on our business in 5-10 years time. And so for us, we took the leap and automated payables through kind of at the time it was Receipt Bank, and it was actually once again, it was one of the kind of the CROs of the company that sat us down over kind of a beer and said, what's the issue, and talked us through kind of why it's important. And we watched the flashy presentation at the or was it the big I think it was the first Xero Roadshow, and we weren't really sold on that. And I think he probably did a bad job of it, but it was the beer beforehand that actually sold us, and we kind of just made the call, and as I said, onboarded pretty much all our clients over in a month or two, and rocket shipped in their eyes into one of the kind of the fastest growing people taking on their software tool, and we haven't turned back since. And I think if you're wanting to pick something that's nice and easy to automate, that has a really big impact, it would be payables. And for us, we tagged on shortly after the use of ApprovalMax because we realized a lot of our clients had documents coming in from various sources, but wanted to verify that they were happy with those. So for us, ApprovalMax tagged on really nicely.
Nice, perfect. Now let's move on to Richard, I believe. So yeah, talk to us about kind of some processes that Ignition can help with, and obviously Peter, stating the obvious, jump in whenever with some of your practical experience, having used the tools in your practice as well.
Can't hear.
I think the mic's muted.
Yeah, Richard's done the fail. It's not
It has to happen at least once, right?
Apologies. Yeah, no, absolutely. I picked practice management or workflow integration because it is one of the sort of the biggest conversations that we have across the key account management team in Ignition globally, to be honest, not just in South Africa or the UK. And it's beneficial for any business, I would say, certainly in the accounting or bookkeeping space, where you have a relatively large team, 5 or more people, and lots of services to have that mapped out in some sort of tool like Xero Practice Manager, Carbon, Pixie, even Asana can do a lot of these tasks as well. So we, from Ignition's perspective, we actually integrate directly through an API with both Xero Practice Manager and Carbon. And then we also, as Peter's alluded to earlier, we leverage something called Zapier to help us integrate with other software tool sets as well, like Pixie and Asana. So a very high level, quick sort of use case of what that could look like is you engage a client, they accept the services that you've proposed to them. You've got your practice management tool fully configured. Off the back of that, we can then raise all of those jobs, those work items, those tasks. Those tasks can be also assigned to the relevant staff members. So everyone who is involved in providing a service to a client knows what needs to be done and when it needs to be done by. So it really does take away a lot of that sort of the manual, have you done this? Emails flying backwards and forwards, and all that kind of old-fashioned way of working. But from an advice perspective, I would always say, no, if you're going to implement something like Carbon, Pixie, Asana, or XPM, think about what tasks need to be provided to provide a service, need to be undertaken to provide a service. So really, delve down into the ins and outs of everything that you need to do to provide a service and get that mapped out. And only integrate with and automate some of those workflow solutions when you've got your workflow tool fully configured. Otherwise, it's never going to work. So, and it's a good idea to, I would say, think about maybe your top 5 services, what is involved to provide those, and then start building out from there. And then you can slowly expand and hopefully automate all of your workflows between Ignition and whatever tool that you decide to use. Pete, I know you use Carbon, right?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so do you use the integration with Ignition, obviously?
Yeah.
Yes.
So We do, Rich. We don't use we don't use the kind of full power of it, I think. But one thing that we caught on very quickly too is during tax season we have hundreds of personal tax returns that we're getting signed off through Ignition, and just to kick off the individual tax return workflow was a big win. So when our clients sign off their proposal, it kicks through a new job in carbon. And I think one of the things that we've realized is really helpful is almost having we call it like a carbon champion or a couple of carbon champions that and I think it's relevant for almost every software that you're on board, having a champion or two in the practice that own that space. So when all those jobs come through, our carbon champions kind of review those work items, make sure they're properly set up, make sure they're assigned to the right people, and that just really eases the issues if there are any, and picks them up nice and quickly. So I think where you are.
Yeah, so obviously I don't know if you've noticed in Ignition, we've recently released a new bulk feature, so you can now bulk renew and bulk send. So if you're talking about, those tax return type engagements, you can do all of that and the work, the carbon side in a matter of minutes. So definitely a good efficiency saving.
Yeah. And I think like practice management's a big word that probably you could tease out and go, what does that really mean? Because for me, also managing the people in the practice through communication tools, using something like Slack or Teams or whatever you've got, and integrating stuff like Ignition really helps just keep the team aware. So all of our team get a kind of a Slack message saying that we've onboarded a new client, and our onboarding team get a message saying, please call said client just to welcome them into our community. And because people aren't normally sitting in emails all the time, or they really shouldn't be. But Slack kind of just pops up, and it creates a really nice client experience if somebody signs up and a couple of minutes later they get a phone call from somebody.
Yeah, definitely. So automated invoicing, accounts receivable. So this is a very quick one, actually. It's but it's something that we've had really good feedback with from an Ignition perspective. Obviously, the fact that we integrate directly with both Xero and QuickBooks, and it's being able to, you've engaged your client, they've accepted the services. Off the back of that, the future billing schedule has been, created, set in place, and then with the integration and everything configured right in Ignition and Xero or QuickBooks, that billing schedule then picks up and fires off those invoices. Everything's communicated directly out of Ignition and the ledger. And it's a real set it and forget it. So you don't have to manually raise invoices. There's no modifications needed. And unfortunately in South Africa, we don't have payments. I said I wouldn't mention this, but I can't help myself. When you have the payments element as well, it just closes that loop of, providing services, raising the bills, raising the invoices and getting paid. So I think, it's a pretty simple one to automate when you do use something like Ignition with either Xero or QuickBooks. And it does save a lot of time.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And one thing that's it's going to sound counterintuitive, but one thing that's probably sometimes a good idea to do is when you're pushing all your kind of invoicing through to something like Xero, we've actually set it to draft, and one of our team just run through them, make sure that they're all good, and it's not necessarily that Ignition's done something wrong. It's probably normally that people have done something wrong, forgot to update a proposal, or kicked out something, then somebody should have been offboarded and we didn't stop the proposal. So it gives just that extra sense check to run through and make sure we're happy.
And again, it goes back to the one size does not fit all, right? And you can have one piece of software and it can be used in so many different ways by different people, different businesses. So. And then client onboarding. This is a big one with many moving parts. Pete talked a little bit about this earlier, and obviously Ignition isn't built as a client onboarding or AML KYC tool. But it's in our opinion, it does form a very sort of important part of kicking off that client onboarding process. So again, using Zapier, we can connect to some really good pieces of software to help with the onboarding. And one of the newer ones on the scene at the moment is something called Xammer. But also within Ignition as well, you could use the communication tools that we have to share certain links as part of the email strategy that you have with the client. So once they've accepted a proposal, it's a new client that could then fire off to something like XPM or Carbon to get the client set up. You're going to have a whole bunch of information that you need to gather from them. So you could use Zapier again from Ignition of that accepted service to then fire off a mail campaign to fire off. Maybe you do one email every 3 days, so you don't want to be too aggressive with your clients, your new clients. Sharing those online forms, if you've got it integrated and with your cloud solution as well, like G Suite or something like that. You can create a whole bunch of folders off the back of the service being accepted in Ignition, allow your clients to upload documents into those, send the links to online forms, whether you're using Typeform or Cognito forms, all of that kind of stuff. So again, there's so many different moving parts in client onboarding. And that is, in my opinion, an area that will never be one size fits all. I don't think there'll ever be one piece of software that provides a total solution in the onboarding space. But again, it's about picking the right pieces of software, thinking about how you want to manage your onboarding experience and what is important, what's a priority, and then you can automate that. And again, we've seen real world examples where a new client has come on board and pretty much, I would say 85% of the key steps that need to do to bring that client in to then start providing services are done within the first week or 10 days. So it's a very powerful thing, but again, it's quite complex and there will be a few moving parts and different pieces of software to achieve that. But that's one of the big ones that we do when we do workflow mapping. So it's an interesting world. I'm sure Pete's got some horror stories of client onboarding.
Yeah, there's always horror stories, but Rich, I think you ticked on a good point of kind of process mapping. You kind of glossed over it there, but I think not many people necessarily do enough of it. And kind of what I see, it's kind of like going back and being a kid and grabbing a few crayons and drawing some pictures. And for me, it's a really helpful way of understanding your customer journey and your just general journey through your various apps. I think Jolie, you probably remember back in the day when she was an auditor, kind of understanding systems and processes and following a document through. And I think the client onboarding experience in many of these kind of spaces, it's really important to understand how things flow through and how people experience it on both ends. And I think what I've learned quite often when chatting with my marketing team or marketing manager is it's not actually super helpful automating everything, and you don't want to overload, as you said, your customer or the person you're interacting with too much information at the wrong time. So you really do need to drip feed slowly the information coming through. One silly thing that we did was I delayed sending a client an automated email. So when they sign the Ignition proposal, they don't get an email straight away. I've got a 2-minute delay on it, so it doesn't quite look as automated as it is. And I think when you're thinking through your onboarding of a client, almost put yourself in their shoes, and they're also experiencing a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty. You want to ease them into it. You want to make them feel really comfortable and happy with the experience, and not overloaded. And automation often feels like you can do things faster, but sometimes it's important to slow down.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's not about what efficiencies you can save internally. It is about that to a degree, but it's also what's the client experience. And you could actually create a very bad experience for your client, like you say, by doing too much too soon. So yeah, it's definitely an area to really think about. And then, like you say, process map it out. You can map out different parts of your business, look at what needs to be automated, and then use that as a sort of an accountability map as well, to make sure that you're automating in the right place and you're not causing any problems later. So yeah, that's client onboarding. It's a beast.
Thank you. So I think there's another poll that's going to spring up here shortly. Again, we can see there's some questions coming in. So if you have questions, do send them in. I see Peter is kind of typing there every now and then, answering some on the fly, which is great. If not, we'll kind of cover them at the end or reach out afterwards. So the second poll, kind of just self-assessing really, where you think you are with practice management, given what the guys just said. So keep those answers coming in, and then we'll move on to the next three.
And I think the interesting thing is when you start unpacking the practice management side, the bigger you get, the scarier it gets in terms of, you might automate a whole load of things, but then not realize that people are involved in putting information onto these systems as well. And I found the bigger we've got, the more important is also just data integrity of what's sitting in what places, and how do you actually manage that and understand all the information flowing. And it gets scary the bigger you get. So make sure you've got good processes in place.
Reminds me of auditing, having good controls, and the age-old saying, rubbish in, rubbish out. So the data is only as good as what you put in.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll have some good stories about how to visualize the data better later.
Definitely.
Cool. So we'll wrap the poll up and do the answers in a few moments. But in the meantime, jump into, I guess, my section of three. So I think the first one, this is probably obvious for someone coming from a company called ApprovalMax, but the approval process. So it's about delegated financial authority. So rather than, actually similar to what was mentioned earlier, is like the whole email ping pong thing, where if you're trying to find out who signed off what, and you go to your boss's boss or whatever, there's a lot of opportunity for misfired payments, people to skate around processes, and then you lose money and all that sort of thing. So what we do at ApprovalMax is we basically let you have that process, back to the process mapping piece, to work out little things like, pull it through from Xero, for instance, and if we want to map an account code to a certain department, and above or below a threshold goes to person A, below goes to person B, maybe if it's £50,000, it's going to go to 2 people, etc., and then you can see it all in this software without having to kind of dig through emails and chase people up, which is really good, because again, it has that streamline effect and the visibility which you wouldn't get otherwise if you kind of have all these boxes of printed out emails, whatever it was back in the day. So I think that's just one thing to bear in mind, is streamlining that approval process. I probably should have asked this before the webinar, but we're going to put Peter on the spot now. Peter, do you use the approval process and ApprovalMax for bills, POs, a bit of everything? How do you guys currently use it at Iridium?
So sheepishly we don't internally use it, but that's probably because it's myself and my brother as the big bosses. So everything goes through my brother in terms of finance. So we technically don't feel like we need it, but we've seen a lot of strength in using ApprovalMax's slightly bigger organizations that have multiple departments or multiple people needing to approve things, and not necessarily be viewing the information in Xero. So the fact that they can see the document, see how it's been allocated, and approve it or reject it or add a comment is a massive win for a lot of our clients. And I think, we've seen a lot of kind of nonprofits use it, a lot of tech companies use it, and bigger into. So I think it's super versatile, and I think that the awesome thing about ApprovalMax that we found is it's just crazy simple to set up. You would think it's much harder, but it really isn't. I think for one client, I set it up in under 10 minutes, and I was showing actually somebody on our team how to do it at the same time and talking them through all the screens. And so most of our clients use it for their PO process and their payables process, and not so much the sales or credit note side of things. And I don't think too many have used the kind of custom workflow, but I might be wrong. I do see a lot of value in customizing your own workflow and kind of approving it, and that is completely available in ApprovalMax. So yeah, that's kind of I think the sweet spot's definitely the PO space. It's really strong. Well, they're all the same, to be honest, but it seems like POs are really badly done out there with the books that have like 3 different color pages, and everyone gets to slip. So yeah.
Nice. It's funny you mentioned actually customer approvals, because I had no idea until I joined, but I just got this like notification to that all the travel and all the everything internally on our side is of course using ApprovalMax. I had no idea before joining how versatile it was outside of the usual kind of bills and POs and that side of things. So yeah, definitely flexible, but as we said before, you find that need, that process map, you start with that, and then down the line you can explore the broader functionality that a lot of the softwares offer. So fraud detection, so this is actually quite an interesting one. So it's just some logic that's in the software. So if, just to paint a picture here, so say you pull in a PO from Xero, goes through X amount of approvals, whatever's needed according to the logic, it's approved, you say great, job done, goes back into Xero. If it then changes at all, you'll get a notification, because again, you don't want someone to, hopefully it doesn't happen, but unfortunately it does happen sometimes in life. Someone changes the amount, changes the bank details, whatever it is, you get a notification of that to flag it and draw your attention to it. Again, that's just something where it's, another example of tech where it's not just like the time saving, which of course most tech gives you that. It's like the additional things that you don't get otherwise, because you're not realistically going to have someone looking at every single thing before it goes out. So it helps flag things like that. Other things, if it's like a different payment amount to usual by a certain threshold, it flags that as well. And it's all in this audit report. So everything that's done is kind of timestamped. You can see who commented what and when. And if anything changed, you can obviously go back and put it through the process again, which is quite a nice feature. It's almost an extension of the approvals one.
Yeah, I think auditors also probably like this. They love going like, how do we, Xero in particular, you can just edit things in Xero. This is ridiculous. And I'm like, no, there are some controls around it. You can check stuff. And I think, the fact that ApprovalMax then actually tells you, what's changed, and I might be wrong. Does it even tell you who changed it? I can't remember. I don't think so, but to be honest, you could probably find that through Xero anyway. But yeah, I think it's definitely from an audit perspective, just this additional feature is like a big win.
Perfect. And final for me, so similar to actually Richard's kind of payment related one. This is specific in terms of processing, specific to the UK, where we partner with ApprovalMax, so you can actually execute payments without leaving ApprovalMax, which is really, really neat. Outside of that, like kind of globally, you can't execute within the platform just yet. Obviously working on that. But you can still kind of do bulk approvals of payments and send it back in. So that's one which I think is quite nice. But again, still, I guess, early days for us in terms of the development of it to make it truly global. So hopefully it does come to South Africa and other markets in the near future.
Yeah, Matt, you were talking about bulk, because I think a lot of people don't know, quite what that means. But in Xero, I've seen our team in particular also click on the bulk kind of invoicing and pushing it down to the bank, and I think you can approve those the bulk allocations in ApprovalMax with the remittances. But yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly that. So you just kind of approve them all once it goes into execute in Xero or other software. Perfect. So I think we now got another poll number 3, similar format to the prior one. Then we'll move on to a few things, reporting and growth with Syft. Another pretty good spread of I do like watching these live, I do have to confess. It is interesting.
Great.
Live stream it. Cool. Whilst that's going, we'll get onto the final 3. Again, there's some more questions coming in. Please keep them coming. We'll try and get to them by the end. If not, we can always follow up afterwards, depending on how detailed the question is arisen. Jodie, over to you to cover your 3.
Awesome. So when it comes to reporting, we kind of see reporting and obviously using Syft in kind of 3 main phases. So the first is foundational reporting. So as an accounting practice or business, you're probably preparing some form of like standard reporting, profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow, that type of thing. And hopefully you're doing monthly management reports to your clients so they can get this information when it's still relevant. I remember when I was in university, there was always an age-old fight between financial accounting and management accounting, because financial accounting would be, oh, it's all important for compliance, and management would say it's so old, you can't do anything with it. So I think it's kind of speaking to that management reporting that you do on a monthly basis. And Syft makes this really easy because we kind of automate the creation of these reports. You can build them out, customize them, make them beautiful. And what's really important is we also have scheduled reports. So you can set up for this report to send on a certain day every single month. You can get a reminder before to make sure that it's, looks good before you send it out. But it's really saving you time in that normal foundational reporting that you're doing for your clients. And that's for 2 things. Firstly, you can provide a better kind of product or report to your clients, but also it opens you up to do kind of the other 2 areas that we talk about. So you can go on to maybe the next one. I don't know if you have anything to add, Peter, first.
No, I think it's like you've nailed it. I think when I first looked at Syft, I was underwhelmed, I'll say, but you were right in saying that like the apps change and Syft has changed so massively in the last few years. When I first looked at it, I was like, okay, cool. It does a few things. Now it does a lot, and it does a lot of cool stuff as well. So I think, that's my 2 cents.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I joined, I think, 1.5 years ago, and it's grown in 1.5 years. So whenever someone says they looked at it 3 years ago or something, I'm like, go look again, because it's very different. So yeah, the first part's just that foundational reporting, and then that should open you up. Well, firstly, give your clients a better product, but also open you up to kind of provide more business partnering, which is what we kind of like to call it. I think it's also advisory, it's often spoken about. But this kind of obviously now you have more time to do business advisory and partnering, but also the software kind of automates the creation of visualizations and graphs and cash manager tools and forecasting. So all those kind of foundations that you would need to go and provide those insights, instead of spending hours putting together Excel spreadsheet to kind of create a visualization that shows how the profit's going up or down, or cash in versus cash out, that's all automated. So you can rather spend time going and sitting down with your client and saying, okay, let's look, why was your profit so much higher in this month? And then what's really exciting is, because we transaction level, you can drill down and say, okay, well, we made these sales, or these were the expenses that we had. And you can also look at it in terms of customer and product. So like operational information. So who was your biggest customer, who's buying the most? Or you can really kind of drill down to give your clients those insights so that they can really make data-driven decisions. So that's kind of the second part on business partnering. So you can kind of grow your offering. Instead of just providing monthly reporting, you can really help your clients grow on their journey. And then the last one is growth. So this one, I suppose it's maybe nice and wafty, but in theory, you now are partnering with your clients and you've kind of hopefully got more time because you've been automating things. And now you can really increase your offering. So you can offer things like benchmarking or forecasting, or as your clients grow and they become big groups, you can automate and make it easier to do consolidations and consolidated reporting. So that's kind of how we see automation of your reporting, kind of freeing up time in your standard reporting, increasing the quality of it, and really telling the story better of the business, and then using the automation of visualizations and operational information to be able to partner with your clients. And then as they grow, making sure you can still automate consolidations and help provide value add service like benchmarking and forecasting. So that's kind of my vision of automating reporting.
And it is a cool vision. Jenny, I think there's, as I said, there is just so much in the Syft tool to get through. I know I've actually sent a few of my team members your team's way and just gone, I'm sure this person can help understand the product better and understand a specific need. And for me, the one I've definitely found is because reporting isn't super simple at times. We might think that it's simple, but a lot of our team don't necessarily feel it's simple. It's scary, and it's something they're sending to their clients who's going to scrutinize it. And I think with all these, I think it's important to know that I think customer service and customer success teams are there to support and help accountants and people learning the tool. I think that's for me on every tool that I've engaged with, like having a really strong customer success team that can walk the journey with you in understanding the tool. I think that's definitely a win.
I think, that's super important. And getting your staff and your team to understand how to use the tool kind of comes back to what I said in the beginning is, our product has grown so much, and while that's amazing, we can offer so many things, it becomes, more and more difficult for clients to know all the ways they can use it to get that value. There's so many different things you can be doing with the tool, and that's why training and our Syft Campus, which is my baby, is really important, because you can go and learn everything, at your own pace and see, oh wait, how can I improve this area of my reporting, and go and kind of learn, because there's a lot to learn in all of the apps. So it's important to kind of be able to upskill.
Definitely.
Nice. So I think one more poll, maybe. Yeah, final poll, maybe. I think might be another one. But yeah, so poll on reporting and forecasting, just to get a little bit of a pulse check to see where you're all at. And then we're going to do a quick kind of wrap up, couple last tips, see if anyone has anything else they want to say before we get into the Q&A. Just slightly conscious of time here. We're coming up towards the hour, so if we run out of time, we'll follow up with any questions afterwards, and then we'll be kind of contact details emailed out as well. So just whilst that poll is still running, let's just jump into kind of last tips. There's 5 on the screen there, so we can pick from that 5, or if anyone else has any others to add, please jump in. I'll actually kick off and say, back to the process mapping. I think having it sounds a bit weird, but having a process of how kind of often you're going to review your processes, like a cadence, is really important, because as everyone's mentioned in the call today, is it fit for purpose? Has it got more features? Is it something else you could do? And just kind of put the onus on the support team and the account management team to really help you achieve the full potential that the tool has. And again, obviously it's no one on this call, of course, but like sometimes the tool might differ to what you initially thought when you signed up and take a different direction. So you have to kind of constantly review it, I think, in terms of the wider app stack. Anyone else have any tips they want to highlight or parting words of wisdom?
My 2 cents is like keep a wide network of friends. I mean, by friends, I mean apps, as in, as Jelly was mentioning, the apps change so often. It's important to kind of, if you've ditched the one because you think it can't be used for your business, in 6 months' time, it might be the most amazing app on the app market. So we're constantly looking at what's out there, seeing what people are talking about in the market, and going, maybe we need to revisit that one. And I think we spent 3-4 years revisiting Syft until we onboarded Syft as a tool, because we knew what we wanted. It wasn't quite there yet, so we said, cool, it's fine, we'll still chat to them because they're doing great work. They just need to catch up to what we want, and when they do, we'll take them on. So I think it's, keep it by network of friends.
I think my
and I know that sorry, Jodley, please.
You go.
I was going to say, Peter, I know we've had that conversation many times. You're very good at giving us constructive feedback, whether it's good or bad. So yeah. And I would just say, looking at automation more generally, from let's say from a business perspective, practice perspective, when you do have things well planned and automated and working well, it does allow you to scale and grow and develop your business. And that obviously then has a downstream impact on how you provide services to clients. So I think there's so many benefits to looking at software and getting it all connected and talking to each other. So yeah.
I think my 2 cents is just point 2 because I head up campus. I think education and upskilling. I know whenever I start a new software, it's always very scary until I actually dig into it and play around with it and kind of watch some help videos and learn how it works. So I think, don't say, oh, the software is not doing what I need. Make sure that you've also invested some time to really understand its full potential, and use resources like Syft Campus to do that, and other, YouTube videos and all sorts of things.
We actually have a Ignition certification, which is about 2 years old now, and it's just been massively upgraded, and it's quite a intense, sort of takes you through the whole platform, and it's constantly changing as we change. But yeah, like you say, talk to your account manager if you've got one. Look at these education videos and keep yourself up to speed, because there's probably the software you're using does do what you want. You're just not sure how to get it to do that. So yeah.
I'm going to add another one into the mix of understand who's going to be using the software, because I know for a few of our tools in the past, we've gone and run everyone through the certification, not necessarily the Ignition one, but through other ones, and then half the team don't use the software in 6 months, and that's just it's just really bad. It's bad planning on our part, but it's really important to know who your internal target market is, for who you need to win over and train, because that'll kind of set you up nicely for success.
Agreed.
Perfect. I think we've got maybe one more poll I've been told at some point, which is going to be launched. So it's a free trial with the 3 softwares on the call today. But yeah, just reach out. We'll send an email with details. If you want to ask any additional questions of anyone, please do. We're on LinkedIn, I presume, so you can find some LinkedIn and stuff as well. There goes the poll. So yeah, if you want to hear more, just let us know. Hopefully we did a decent job of that at least. There's a few questions that have come in. A lot of them are actually regarding kind of softwares outside the school, which is fine. But I'm wondering if Peter, if you want to call any of those out, one's actually specifically for you, so maybe that one at the bottom there. But I'll let you have a quick look at that whilst the people are answering the poll.
Dimitri asks, which part of the accounting process are we looking to explore further and automate? Dimitri, I'm gonna pick payroll and HR, essentially why? Because we're looking to do that, and we have been doing that in the last year, and building our own stuff in the background, and not necessarily sharing what we're building. But I think there's a lot of that, and I think I'd love to get payments done better, and I think that's just payments in general, supply payments, payroll payments. I think that there's a lot that South African market could benefit from if we had better payments, and I think there's lots of opportunity there. And other than that, I think it's just tweaking existing flows. What I like is you can set something up and then revisit it in 6 months' time and say we could do this better, and just keep tweaking. We've been doing a lot of automating in the last 10 years. Now it's about, I think, optimizing what we've got. Other than that, sectional title scheme. I'm sorry, Shirley, I'm not great in terms of that, but I'm pretty sure Jodie has somebody that probably could sort that out for you, in terms of reporting side of things, because it is very much customized reporting for schemes. I'm sure one of their team could look at that, and I'm going to say Louis, but it's probably Lewis. I don't use ApprovalMax, so gonna have to find maybe Richard can jump on and answer privately, separately for that. Mubashir, we actually the communication side, as for individual tax returns, we actually send, and this is our second version of it. We use MailerLite to send out mailers to tell our clients when we're going to do their tax return, and it's filtered across. You're doing it in June, you're doing it in July, you're in August, and we've segmented our clients to tell them when. We've also added things like FAQs into a general mailer. So I think a lot of our stuff goes through mailers. And then we use Carbon. It has like a client portal as well as client tasks that we kick out to our clients. The actual tax return, we've just built a really cool Google Sheets that's got a whole lot of automated calculations built into it. I don't think taxes are done really well in terms of software right now. I'm not going to name and shame anyone, but I think they can all do better. And just make something nice and simple for us that's a little bit more kind of the Syfts and Ignitions and the ApprovalMax like level. Nice, good quality UI UX. I think that's really lacking in the tax space currently. I don't know if we've got too much more time, but the rest are all really scary questions about financial services companies and loans. And Martin, I agree. There's not really a lot of great tools out there to automate the financial services space yet. But what I would suggest, Martin, is jumping onto one of the many community forums on Facebook, actually, in the Xero space, and ping that question to somebody like Heather Smith from Australia. She is an absolute guru in the space and loves finding great tools to improve things. So if she doesn't know an answer, no one knows an answer to improving financial services, interest and loans and whatnot. Are we still good for time?
Yeah, I was going to say we're probably coming up to time there, but yeah, thank you everyone for joining. And if you had any questions that weren't answered, you want kind of more questions, if you're watching us on demand, perhaps do reach out to the panel, reach out to the apps and the companies that will be able to put you in touch. I'm more than happy to help where we can. Of course, it's not all within all of our wheelhouses, but we can hopefully direct you to people who might be able to help. Other than that, again, we'll send a webinar recording after this via email with some links to the free trials and contact details and stuff. But I just want to thank my fellow panelists for joining and sharing their wisdom. So thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.